Hello guys, welcome to my channel. So in this video we are going to see yet another mock interview. So before we move on to the video, I'd like to give you a few details. So the candidate is having roughly 5 years of experience working with Java development. So in this interview we are going to talk about skills like Java, Spring MVC, Spring Boot, Hibernate and SQL. So now the last thing is going to be, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. Now let's move on to the interview video.
Okay, so I'm hoping that you are aware about the job description for this profile.
Yeah, like I said, like Java developer and Java Spring Boot SQL is expected.
Sure, sure, sure. So here we need two skills. One is going to be your Hibernate, and another one is SQL skill. So you already said Spring Boot, so Spring MVC is pretty much covered there.
Yeah,
And Java 8 is going to be the primary skill that I'm going to look for in this interview.
sure. Okay, sure. Yeah,
And the rest were all secondary skills. So let's start with Java 8. So
definitely.
so first question would be like why Java 8 is so popular and
Mm,
the later on version that we got like Java 13, 15, 17, they are not that popular. So what is the
okay,
reason you think?
okay. So according to my knowledge, like why we go for Java is an independent language. Mean like it's a platform independent.
No, not
So
Java. So question is why Java 8?
okay, so the reason why Java 8 like is it's a open source. First of all, Java like after Java 9, everything is commercial one. So Java 8 is an open source, and
But then you can use OpenJDK also, right? We do have
mm,
OpenJDK also, and then
JD,
we have newer versions with those as well.
okay. Um, why Java like wait.
So what were
No.
the new features with Java 8?
Yeah, we have like they introduced this functional programming concepts with Java 8. Like we have this Lambda expressions, then Stream API, then we have this functional interface. So those kind of things and all we have. And like some few functional programming methods like predicate, consumer, suppliers, and like that.
So are these predicate consumer methods or interfaces in Java 8?
Yes,
Which one, method or interface?
interface.
Interface. Okay.
Yes.
So let's talk about interface. What do you
Okay.
understand by interface? What is an interface?
Um, interface is like yeah, we use this interface and abstract class for to accomplish this concept of abstraction, which means like we are just providing the like we are providing way to use the functionality and not to exhibit like how the functionality has been implemented. We are so using this interface and abstract class, we are just providing the we are just exposing how to use that functionality. That's it. So when we use this, so when we have this interface, we have the interface consists only of the abstract methods, whereas this abstract class has the abstract methods as well as the like method definition will be having in the abstract class.
Okay. So when we talk about abstraction, we have abstract class and interface, as you said. But whenever we get a new feature in any of the Java release, we always talk about interfaces like predicate, consumer, or interfaces. So why
Okay.
do you think interfaces are that widely used rather than abstract class?
um okay. Why we are using this interfaces like my idea on this is like if we use abstract class, we have to extend if you want to use that class means we have to extend it, whereas and Java doesn't support multiple inheritance, and if you want to use multiple inheritance means that is possible only by implementing the interfaces. So that's one way. And yeah, so by using this functional interface we can write that entire like what functionality we are going to achieve, we can write in a single line of statement, like that be able to achieve it. uh, that's why we're going for interface, I would say.
Okay, good enough.
And yeah.
Okay, so then we have functional interfaces. So did we had any functional interface before Java 8, or is this new feature
Yes,
entirely?
we are in thread itself. We have right like called a runnable method, which is a functional interface, which has only one method, and yeah, we have few other methods like callable. So those kind of methods all before Java 8, it's also available.
Okay, so okay, let's talk about function interfaces. So let's say if I have to create my own function interface.
Okay.
Okay, so what will you do to proceed with it?
Okay, first we'll be creating the interface, like
Mm-hmm.
public interface name, and then I have to annotate that interface with at functional interface. Actually, it's not mandated that we need to put that annotation but by putting that annotation, by adding that annotation, it makes sure that we won't, even by mistake also, we won't add any other abstract methods to it.
Okay,
So yeah, so this way we can create it.
so let's say that I am not using functional interface annotation, and
Okay,
I did actually add two abstract methods, right?
okay.
So will there be any compilation error or will there be any exception?
If you're not using if you're not using that annotation, means it won't throw any compilation error and all. We can have
So
multiple abstract methods in an interface.
okay, will I get an exception in that case?
If not using the at functional interface
Yeah,
annotation.
yeah, yeah. So
uh,
let me rephrase my question. I'm
mm,
not using the annotation. Okay,
okay. Mm,
I have two abstract methods in my interface.
okay.
You said there won't be any compilation error. My
Yes.
question is, will we getting any exception in that case when we run the code?
um no, we won't,
Okay, sure,
because yeah, because we are
okay,
not telling our compiler that this is a functional interface, so it takes as a normal interface.
got it. All right, good enough for me. Then you said public interface, that is how you will go to
Mm,
create an interface. So do
yeah.
you think I can use any other access modifier here
uh
other than public?
Maybe private we cannot use it. um
Why not?
like private, in case of class, okay, if we use like in case of class we can't extend when we make a class as a private one. In case of mm, this class implementation, actually I have not tried it.
No worries. You can like try it after this
Sure,
interview.
yeah, sure, definitely.
Okay, let's move on from interfaces. So,
Sure.
were there any new things that you are aware of in Java, like in Java 8, especially other than
Mm.
functional interfaces?
Recently learned about like how efficient we can use this stream APIs without, like when we use our collections, how well
Hmm.
we can use this stream APIs, and then the comparable and comparators, those things and all that.
Okay, so you are saying like the performance will be, better if we are using Stream API. Is that correct?
Yes, and
Okay,
also it will reduces a line of code.
okay, got it. So just a question on this. Let's say that I have a quad core system with me, okay,
Okay,
and I have my big application on it, which is going to run 24 by 7,
okay,
right? So, and let's say there is a good communication between database and service layer,
okay.
right? That means that you have to send the data to the database and then you have
Mm.
to fetch the data
Receive
from the
it.
database. So there are
Okay,
going to be a lot of DB connections,
okay,
queries actually, right?
okay.
So how do you think Stream API is going to help you in this scenario?
In this scenario, stream APIs. Okay. Mm, with respect to DB, like the details we get.
Okay, let me give you a hint here. So
Mm,
is there any way that you can refer to Stream API with the kind of course that you have in your system? Like, is there any kind of a functionality where you can use your partial utilization of your CPU or maybe complete utilization? Or are you aware of this? If not,
No,
then that's okay. Okay.
no, Prashant.
So with Stream API, you said you are learning on it. So what do you know of as of now?
As of now, like the manipulations we do on these collections, like we use this filter, then
Mm-hmm.
sorting. So using this comparator, how we sort different kind of things, like not simple sort, like we in an object, if we are having like age and department, so like that we are having means like how we can do different types of sorting in that, and how we can group it, like those things and all I learned.
Okay, so let me give you just a simple example. Let's say that I have my list of employees. Let's say there are only 10
Okay.
employees, right? What
Okay.
do you need to do is, let's say in my employee class, I have three things: ID, name, and salary.
Okay.
You just have to
Okay.
give me an employee having the highest salary
Okay.
from that list of employee. So do you know like which function or
Mm,
which method do you
mm,
think? And you don't have to give me the entire
mm.
code. You just have to give me the name of the method, which will give me the desired
Okay.
result.
Okay. So how we can use is like yeah, we want the highest salary, right? So what we can
Hmm.
do is since it's an employee object, in that employee model we can implement this thing called a comparable interface, and we can override this method called compare to, and in that we can compare this salary, and then in the stream API we can call like stream dot sort. So when we call that, it will automatically calls this since we have overrided the compare to method, it will sort it, and according to that it will provide it. And then what we can do is, and we can use this method called find first. So when we use that, it will provide the list to us.
I think you haven't referred to stream here. You have talked about Java 8 new feature where you can use comparator and comparable, maybe
Yeah.
using lambda expression. That is, I
Yes.
think, where you are referring to.
Yes.
Question is, let's say you have a stream
Mm.
and then you have to sort that stream, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
here your answer would be different. You have to sort it, that's okay. But then you have to
Okay.
fetch the topmost item.
Yeah,
So,
that's what. After that, yeah, after that sort, and then what we can do is like sort dot find first, like that we can do it.
okay, let's say that you have to reverse that sort. Do you have any kind of like
We have to
perspective in mind?
reverse it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then in that case, yeah. So in that case, what we can do is we can use this kind of this called comparator, maybe we can use. So in comparator, what we will be doing is we'll be usually we'll be passing two arguments. So let's say like s1 and s2, sorry, e1 and e2, and they'll be comparing the 1 minute.
Yeah,
Mm,
I think internet was being
yeah,
weird.
like
No worries, no worries.
sorry.
That's okay. Let's move on. Can you quickly
Okay.
share a screen and let's do a
Yeah,
quick coding exercise?
definitely. Sure. Yeah. Do you want me to open ID or Notepad?
Um, let's start with Notepad.
Sure.
Okay. You don't have to actually write the entire code. What you
Okay.
need to do is you just have to write me a rough implementation of your logic where you can
Sure.
give me a rough idea that okay, like with this logic I can go ahead and do the actual stuff, right?
Sure.
It doesn't
Sure.
have to be perfect. It
Mm,
just have to be like your thinking that I need to know, right?
sure. Definitely.
Okay, so let's start with linked list. Let's say that
Okay.
I just have linked list starting from let's say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's your linked list.
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Okay, what you need to do is you just have to find me the middle element of this linked list. So what will you do?
Okay. Um. 1 minute. 5 divided by maybe the length size of the array, uh, divided when we divide the size of the array by 2, we will get one element which is called like 5 divided by 2 will be getting like 2 will be so
So let me
3.
stop you here. This is not an array but a linked list.
Okay. Okay.
Are you comfortable with data structures?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay, so let me not give you an example which you won't be using or needing. So let's say in a perfect world or in your uh, future opportunity, you get a chance to implement a logic where you
Mm.
have to you have thousand and let's say you have billions of records. It's a big
Okay,
list, right?
okay.
So first, tell me which data structure will you use to store that kind of a
Uh,
value.
Okay, so if you're not going to do any manipulations like addition, like insertion like that, we are not going to do anything such kind of thing. Means at the time we can go for this array list. But if you're going to do some operation on our on our collections, means then at the time we want to use this a linked list. Why? Because like when we use this array list, we can store the list. We in array list also we can do the manipulations and operations and all. But the thing here is, if I remove any element inside, like if we have millions of records we are having, in 100th element I'm removing the 100th element, means the rest of the elements we have to move upwards. So that's how this array list works. So when I use in such situation, if I use it, it will cause us a performance issue. So that's why we are going for the linked list at that time.
Okay, let's say that I have to write that data. So array list is your preferred choice. So I'm going with that. So
Okay,
let's say I have array list of type integer and I have
okay,
billions of data, like going from
okay,
let's say 1 to 10 billion. Okay.
okay.
So what I need to do is I need to move that data to a CSV file, which means that I have to either use a
CSV parser.
comma.
Okay.
Yeah, so a delimiter that I have to use or
Mm,
append. So what you need to
okay.
do is you need to move your entire array list to a string, which means that you have to
Uh,
move your like
mm,
data from 1, 2, 3, 4 till 10 billion to a
mm,
single line separated by a delimiter, which could be your comma, your colon or semicolon. So what will you do here?
mm. We can use this join method, string dot join. We can use it. Um, string dot join and in that bracket we can pass the value of comma.
Okay, so how will string dot join like help you here?
Actually, yeah, when we have multiple things like this, we can use. Yeah, I don't know how exactly the join method works, but when we have multiple string value like s1, s2, s3, like yeah, we have array of things means. But when we use this string, it will concatenate and it will provide a string, single string value that I'm sure. Like
Any other
using,
way, like without using
yeah. Apart from
join method?
that, yeah. Apart from that. Yeah, usual method we use, right? Like by yeah, using for loop. No, yeah, it will take a lot of time. um
So even with string dot join, you have to iterate over, right? You have to use your for loop.
um is it like that? Mm, okay. Okay, so normal way we'll be using like yeah, we'll be using the for loop, and we'll be concatenate the list to it. And yeah, this is one way of doing. We can use string dot join. And other thing is
Okay, let me give you something.
okay.
So here you have to tell me if I do run this, will I get any compilation error or will this work fine?
No, we won't get uh we want to say no, we won't get any compilation error. Uh, and then
For both of
yeah,
them?
yes.
Okay. So
One
you
minute. String is equal to 1 plus a plus 1. No, actually, in one way, actually, there will be an exception in any one of this. Actually, I forgot. This kind of scenario I seen somewhere. I just forgot it. A
actually
plus one.
this
Actually, second from the first. In this, I think in this we will be getting the exception. Here we won't get.
Okay, so I asked you this question because you said we can concatenate when we are iterating over a list of
Okay.
integers. So
Okay. Mm,
in that case, your concatenation is not going to work, right? If you're getting any exception in this scenario.
okay. Maybe like we can make it as a string s3 equal to something like this, and then can concatenate like
So in your chat, you can see that A is also enclosed with your quotes.
wait.
Go back to the chat window, check
Yeah.
my message once more. Check
Yeah. One
if
plus a plus one. Yes.
yeah, but A is enclosed with quotes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. In your notepad, you don't have quotes here.
Just this is string, so just I left that.
Yeah. So will it work if you are going with S3 and quotes? Will it
Uh,
create any exception?
s3 equals mm, equals to like s3 plus maybe list of list dot get I like this.
Okay. Okay. No worries. Let's move ahead with Hibernate now. So
Okay.
let's start with what is Hibernate. You can stop
So
sharing your screen.
sure. So Hibernate is like is an it's a specification of AJP, I would say. Like it's an ORM tool, which means like we have our backend and our database. So we just need something to connect between these two things. We just need some bridge between that. That we call as an ORM. It's an object relational mapping. So which means like so through which like Hibernate is one of the ORM tool, and the thing is like yeah, the object which we have in our Java, in our Java backend. So it will be mapped to our database. So everything is based upon the annotations here.
Okay. So if I don't use annotations in Hibernate, can I use Hibernate?
Then we have to use manually. We have to provide those configurations like XML configurations. Those things and all. We have to provide it. If you are not doing
Okay.
any, yeah.
So where do you provide your properties that has to be associated with your Hibernate framework?
Maybe in web.xml, like usually we provide all those configurations. Like if you are going to do XML based configurations, means in the web.xml we can provide all those configurations. And if not, like we have this project class, so on that project class we can make sure that's at entity like that we able to add it.
Okay, so is it only like is it web.xml or is it any other XML file or maybe other file that we use with Hibernate as a default implementation file?
Default implementation file. I'm not aware of that, but I just used web.xml. I've used it. Specific to Hibernate, I'm not sure.
So okay, so have you worked with Hibernate?
Yes, I worked with this.
Okay, so have you like heard of hibernate.cfg.xml file?
cfg.xml file, no, I have not.
Okay, no worries. Okay, let's say that whatever I'm doing with Hibernate,
Mm,
so as you said, Hibernate is an ORM tool, which means that it helps us communicating with the database.
yes.
So if I want to see what communication Hibernate is doing, as in what query is it executing,
Okay.
so if I want to print that out in my
Mm,
console window, what
mm.
will I do in that case?
Yeah, in the properties thing, we have to enable this called the. Actually, we have a lot of things like we have data SQL. Sorry, Hibernate hyphen dialect we have, and yeah, like I know that we have to enable something, like we have to enable the properties. Uh, the exact name I'm not getting it. View data,
Okay.
is it view data or
No, it's not that. Okay, no
yeah?
worries. Let's say that I want to connect with my multiple databases.
Okay.
It's not like I have only one database. I have to connect with multiple databases. How will you
Yes.
connect to multiple databases using Hibernate?
Sure. Actually, so far I have not did it connecting with multiple. I just read how we can do it. So, like same thing, like we are providing the properties for one database, right? So, likewise, we have to provide the database properties for other things also. For example, I would say like we have spring.jp.data source we have, right? On that we have to provide the name like spring.jp.data source dot database one, and for other properties it should be like database two. Like that we have to provide it, and then in our configuration file, according to that we have to do the configurations. That's the uh, like overview I have on that.
Okay, so in this case, how will you create sessions? If I go with properties, let's say you said you have in my two databases scenario, I would need two properties, right? But
Yes.
how will you create a session? Hibernate works on a session, right?
Mm. Like actually out by at backend it automatically handles by the Hibernate, right? Do we
Is it?
explicitly handle like
Is it?
our
So
Spring?
how will
No,
Hibernate
like
know
I
that?
mean Spring Boot. Yes, Spring Boot. Yeah, that's what we are
But
using, this
Spring Boot
Spring Boot,
is
right?
other framework.
Okay.
Yeah, but Hibernate is built by someone else. Spring Boot is built by someone else. They
Yes,
both
yes.
need to be collaborated, but that is the responsibility of a developer,
Okay.
right?
Uh,
They cannot
mm,
function on their own until unless you do the needful things, right?
okay. So,
Okay,
actually, I have not used it in that way. Well, like usually, what I do is like I use the Spring Boot, and then I add the database properties, and then like usual stuff I will be doing, uh, like fetching the data or posting or updating like that. Like that only I have done. Is any specific configuration related to Hibernate? I have not done.
okay, no issues, no issues. Okay, then let's start with your SQL. So,
Okay.
are you aware of foreign key in SQL?
Yes, like when we have this relational mapping, this a foreign key will be created at the time.
Relational mapping.
Like
I didn't get it.
when we relate to tables, I'm telling.
Hmm. Okay,
Yeah.
so in that case, what is primary key?
Primary key means actually it is a unique key, which means like it has to be exist. Like it doesn't, it should not have a null value, and it should be a unique one. And in every table we should have this primary key.
Okay, so does foreign key has to be unique?
Yes, definitely. Like yeah, foreign key. Foreign key, we have different tables. Yes, definitely. Like if you are going to relate something, means that it knows that like we have two tables. Okay, we have table A and table B. If table A is have a one-to-one relationship, table B means table A is going to have the foreign key of table B. So and then if I'm having another table C, and table A is going to relate with table C, means then we have another foreign key, which will be different, right?
Okay, and
Yeah.
what is unique key?
Unique key is like, yeah, it's similar to primary key, but the thing here is unique key can have a null value, one null value it can have, and yeah, that's a, that's all I know about unique key.
Okay, in my unique key and primary key, or let's say foreign key, can I have multiple columns added, not just one
Um,
column?
Foreign key, yes, we can have multiple foreign items. We have foreign, we can have it, and primary, yes, primary also it's possible. Unique, I'm not sure.
Okay, 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 no worries.
And I
Let's
think it should be possible. Yeah, actually, it's that unique is related to specific column only. So I think it's possible.
which is an ORM tool. Do you know what MySQL is a type of? Or
Relational
SQL?
database.
Okay, so when we say relational database and ORM, what do you think is the major difference in between these two?
Um, ORM is like it's a tool to connect our backend and the DB, and relational database RDBMS
Okay, no issues. Are you aware of views in
view.
SQL? Yep.
Yes, yes, yeah. So
What
views
are
is
they?
like we have this called select queues, like kind of things and all we have. So when why we go for views, like it will just create a virtual table for us. We won't create a separate table. So for example, I would say yeah. So yeah, if we want to join multiple tables and we want to give to a user or something, we have to do it. So at the time we can use this kind of a view, which means like it doesn't create any new table, it just creates some virtuality, like it's having a table, but it doesn't create a new table at all. That's why we go for this view.
Okay. What about index? Have you used them?
Index I have not used, but I read about it. So why indexing, why we have used is like in SQL, usually when we go for this searching things, we usually use this where clause. So when we use this where clause, what happens means at the back end it goes for this Cartesian index, like it follows the Cartesian process, which means like it will check each row by row, like whether this condition has been passed or not, like that it will be checking. So if you're having hundreds of record, means definitely it's going to be a performance issue for to check on the 100 records. So to avoid that, what we can do is we can index the columns. We can do this indexing for the specific columns. When I do the indexing, and when we go for this search, what happens is it will it will search for the specific key, like that. So by using that, we able to improve our performance, searching
And
query
how will you
performance.
decide that which columns need to be indexed?
Like maybe based upon the we know, right, based on which column we are going to search for it, like that we have some criteria, right? Maybe based on that. Yeah, if you are having some employee name, or yeah, if you are having employee name, we are going to search by employee name, means then that employee name has to be indexed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What are the different types of joins in SQL?
We have yes, we have inner join, and we have left join, right, and full join, and we have self join. Yeah, this is what I know.
Okay.
And apart
Um,
from that, we have natural and cross join, but I'm not exactly know how the process it works.
okay. In which scenario do you think we will use self join?
Self join, that actually the self join means like we are joining the columns in on the same table, like that. Like yeah, we am having like employee name and age, means we are just grouping that. But I don't know why we are using that kind of joining. I don't know why we are using it, because
No
even
issue.
like select employee name and age, we able to get that, but why I don't know that.
Are you using Spring right now or just Spring Boot?
Spring Boot.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
actually from the day I started, I'm using only Spring Boot.
but are you aware of Spring MVC?
Yes, yes, yeah, I'm aware of it.
Okay. So, what does MVC here stands for?
Model view controller.
Model View Controller. Okay. So,
Yes.
how does Spring uses this architecture of MVC in its
Okay.
implementation?
Yeah, sure. So the basic thing for this web application is the servlet. Okay, so whatever the request from the front end comes, it will be cached by our dispatcher servlet. Okay, so the work of the dispatcher servlet is to get the receive the request, and it has to analyze the request URI, and it has to map to the corresponding method. We have this on the controller, we call it the handler class. So it has to map the respective method on in your present in the handler class, and then and it should provide the output earlier, like we have this JSP, this kind of things and all we have used, but in my case I'm using REST API. So it will process it and it will provide the response to us. That's the main thing. We have this servlet, dispatcher servlet.
Okay, okay. So there are multiple ways to implement your Spring MVC with your application, right? So are
Okay,
you
yeah.
aware of those ways?
um One way I've used is like I've used a Spring Starter Web, which internally consists of depends upon the Spring MVC. um Only that way I have used it.
Okay, okay. Then what are the annotations that you are aware of in Spring MVC?
We have at Spring Boot application, and which is equivalent to at component scan, and enable auto configuration. And we have this at component service repository configurations, and we have a transactional, and then auto wired, important one, then repository, and with related to tables, we can say like entity, and at table column at id generated value, and
Mm-hmm.
at not null, like that and all. And related to lombok, I can say like at data at builder, no argument constructor, all argument constructor, I would say. And yeah, in
Okay,
respect to REST API, we have this REST controller, request mapping, post mapping, those kind of things and all we have.
okay. That's okay. The question was only related to Spring MVC, but I think you mixed Lombok as well as Spring Boot in
Sorry.
between. But
Okay.
that's okay, no issues. But what you said, let me ask you on that. So
Sure.
with REST controller, you are using REST controller and annotation,
Mm.
and then we have controller annotation as well.
Yes,
So
definitely,
why do we
yes.
have these two annotation, and how will I decide which one to use?
Actually, if you are going to use this REST API means, then definitely we have to go for the REST controller. Actually, internally REST controller is the combination of the controller and the response body. Whereas controller, if you want to return the readable one, like human readable output, if you want to give, then at the time we want to go for this at controller, which means like if you want to return any HTML page like that, if you want to do means, we can go for this at controller. And at controller we'll be using when we are using this JSP thing, and REST controller we will be using when we are going for this REST API.
Okay, so let's say that I'm using Spring framework, and there are a lot of user forms or UI pages where I have to fulfill or like provide user information. Like, I have to
Okay.
save that information with database. But the
Okay.
issue with that is I have a specific format that I
Okay.
need.
Mm.
So how will you validate that the user data is within that format? How will you do those
Okay.
validations?
In two ways we can do it. In the front end, if you ask me, in the front end also we can validate the forms, and at the back end, if you want to means, we have to add this called validation dependency, I think so. We have to add it, and we have to provide the things like whether it should be null or not null, and we have to provide the maximum size, at size maximum minimum, like that we have to provide it. So likewise we can do the validation. And yeah.
Okay, are you aware of any annotation that we can use to do the validation here?
Mm, at validation, at something at valid something.
Okay, okay. So with Spring MVC or with Spring Boot, if you have to create UI page,
Mm.
which framework will you use to create those UI pages or
Actually, in my
technology?
application, I have used React.js for my front end.
Okay, but are you aware of any other framework or technology?
Yeah, we have Angular, and we can use JSP also. And yeah, this is what I know.
Okay, that's good enough. So this was all that I had for this
Okay.
interview.
Alright, so thank you for staying till here. So if you are wondering like why the candidate is rejected after this interview, so let me give you a few pointers. So there are some primary skills that we have to look at, and then there are some secondary skills that we have to look at. So the weightage of the primary skills exceed your secondary skills. So when we talk about primary skill in this interview, it was Java 8, Spring Boot, Hibernate, and then we have secondary skill as SQL. So here when we talk about weightage, Java 8 is having more weightage than Spring Boot and Hibernate. So I did ask a lot of questions based on Java, and then there were some questions on Java 8 specifically. So let's say if I ask you around 5 questions and you are able to answer 3 out of 5, that's good enough for me. We can proceed ahead. But remember that you have to answer 3 out of 5 questions here. So there is going to be certain cutoff, and every interviewer, if he is there taking your interview, he has that criteria. So if you are wondering like why did you got rejected, you can always ask them for your feedback, but not ask them like whether you are selected or rejected. You can ask yourself like what do they think about your skill set that you have currently, so they can let you know based on the interview that where do you have to work on basically, right? So I know this is tough, but this is how the market is currently right now. So whenever we are taking a mock interview, we have to be harsh here, because that is how we are going to work on ourselves so that we can do better in the real interview. So that is that. Now if you are still looking more into it, then I'm going to take a lot of mock interviews. A lot of mock interviews. So if you want to give a mock interview, you can let me know on the comment section. You can let me know on the comment section. I'll contact whichever way possible, or you can connect with me on, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram. So this is it for this video. This is it for this video. Thank you for watching till here. Thank you for watching. You are having a good day. I hope you are having a good day. Let's meet in some another video. Till then, have a good day. Till then, have a good day. Stay